Hello, welcome back to my devlog. I am creating a game called The Majestic. It's a 5-part narrative in large open world levels. You play as a eagle character, and you explore these open world levels and unlock the story and secrets from your past human life. I'm pushing hard for an alpha build of the game, and it's coming along really, really well, I feel. So just starting off here, this here is taking place in Act 2 of my game, and I'm working on the final story bits of the act. So my game is broken into a 5-part narrative, and this is Act 2. What I'm doing here is I set up some foliage tree assets that are unique. So what I'm doing is using the foliage tool to create this pattern of trees coming from this other larger pink tree, which also will be glowing. And I'm just going around and painting them onto the surface of the landscape here. I try to create these big ticket moments where you see some really interesting things going on as you explore this world. So here I'm testing it out, and the trees are glowing a little too intensely. Here I'm updating the material to tile the pattern on the trees a little bit better. And here it is after that little change. You can see it's like a little swirly pattern in the trees. I have these splines that need to be adjusted. They're used for some of the paths that are taken by some of the main characters in the game. Pathing needs to be a little bit different here to avoid the trees I just placed. What I'm working on here is the actual cinematic for the end of this act. The way I create my cinematics, it's fairly similar through all of them. I get the characters in place, and then I start setting up my camera shots. And then once the shots are laid out and blocked in, I will go in and start adding animations to the characters. Once that's all laid out, I will add the dialogue, sound effects, music, camera shake, special effects, props. There's quite a bit that goes into each cinematic. But that's what I really enjoy about creating this type of game, being able to create this world, this story. It's directing my own little movie. Once I got to a good place with the cinematic, I spent an entire week going through the entire level and updating its appearance. This is how the level looked, and then I added over 8,000 static mesh assets to create these more detailed cliffs and mountains and hills. And then after that was done, I had to regenerate all of the trees and foliage. And then after that was also recreating the H-LODs. So once that was done, and I built the game, and then I spent a couple days playtesting. If you've played the demo that's available, a lot of this is familiar. I did some color grading enhancements, made things a little less pink, and added some yellow and greens back into the scenery. So I got all the way to the point in the game, and this is all in the demo as well, where the wisp is taking you to an invasion. And what happened is, for some reason, my wisp ended off far off out of the game world, the game boundary. And this little arrow is pointing to it. I was a little taken aback by this issue, because it's something that's been in the game for a very, very long time and never really had issues with. I deem this a critical bug. And when I get to something critical, which basically would stop gameplay, my playtest ends and I work on that bug specifically. The first thing I did was I saved the game, loaded it back up, and wanted to see if it repeated what it did, and sure enough, it repeated the issue. So I save it there, go in the editor, load everything up, and this is the path the wisp is taking, which took quite a bit to diagnose what was going on here, but I remembered the last time I worked on this ability, which happened to be about a month ago. It was at the end of my last devlog. I was trying to fix some issue with going over areas where there's no landscape. So I isolated the issue to this node here where I'm adding a couple vectors together, and that, of course, was the error. I was adding two vectors together where I really shouldn't have been. It was just throwing the wisp into these far-off locations. I leave Act 1 and get into Act 2. There is one massive issue, and that's just the world is overly bright. I always had this massive pinkish moon in my game. It just looks a little bit more detailed and better now, which I'm pretty happy with that. Here's another bug I had issues with for the longest time, and I never really truly solved it. I did implement a workaround where it finally is fixed, but this has been a long-standing bug for several months now. Something wasn't registering properly. So now I'm just handling the check two different ways. I look for the gameplay tag, and then if that fails, I'm also looking for this data asset. Then that kind of solves the issue. This scene here, I have two versions of it. So here's like a split screen of the before and after where the lighting is finally fixed. Now things are looking very pristine and as expected. It was a drop-down box, basically. The light that moves with the sun basically wasn't moving with the sun. But I never really focused on solving it until just recently. It wasn't that difficult to track down and kind of made a lot of sense when thinking about it. Now, that dramatically changes how the game looks. With that change, I need to edit brightness of some more effects. The character, the glowiness is just way too intense. Speed ability and the particle effects are just taking over the screen. You can't even see the character. So that happens at nighttime. I have the glowiness changes based on the time of day. So when it gets to be nighttime, I just need to tone down how much that stuff glows. So another unique aspect with my game, especially with this level, I don't know if I'll do it with too many other levels. It was quite a big thing to do. The whole level changes pretty dramatically from this like pristine and nice looking world to this darkened landscape. So one thing that's an issue here is actually a lot of my enemies are not spawning as they should be when it's this version of the level. So this is like the first time I was actually encountering something in the game where I just decided to run away from it because it was too overwhelming. I try to keep it as casual as possible and not be that difficult. Everything really is here for story purposes, but I found that amusing. Another issue was the buildings. When the buildings are streamed out of the level, because you might go too far away from them, when you go back towards them, they're not all broken up and destroyed, which they should be. This cinematic I created a long time ago. I spent a week just on this one little cinematic that's not even that long. I was trying to see like what I could put into it. The one thing it does is changes the weather to this like stormy, rainy time of day. I just wanted to see how the level looks when it's downpouring. I think this is a good level of brightness for nighttime, but things are still glowing too much. I haven't fixed that yet. So I have different appearances for the character. I really like this gold color. It's really nice. It looks cool. Once I tone down the glowiness, it'll be fantastic. And then here, this might look familiar because it's testing out the final cinematic that I was working on when we started this video. So here's some of the final imagery with the glowing trees and the animals. And I'm just skipping through it pretty quickly, not to spoil too much here. But at the end of it, a little portal will open to Act 3, which is exciting, getting to start work on Act 3. Something I've been working towards and waiting to do for a very long time. But right now, it leaves off at the main menu, which I did recently update a little bit here. So that's where it is at this moment, and I just need to do a little more play testing and fixing a couple more issues, and alpha should be pretty much here. If anybody would like to play the alpha, I have set up a Patreon. It's been set up for about a month now. So that'll be it for this one. I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.